We are going to start a whole new library called the string library. So far we have generated a graphics library, a mathematics library. Now this library is going to be used in order to manipulate characters within a string. So the type of things that we are going to do are shown here. Now we may do all of them or we may do just a subset, but we will be choosing a few of these, and there's another few that aren't actually on this list. So for example, we might want to work out the length of a string, so the number of characters in a string. We might want to capitalize the string or make all the letters lowercase. We might want to take a section of the string or a subsection of the string and save it as another string, or we might want to replace a part of the string with some other string. So there's lots of different things that we can do within this library. So let's get started with the string library. So first of all, we want to see how we deal with strings within our assembly language. So what we can do is we can use the DC command and we can pick a name. So in this instance, I've picked the name string. Now the string is going to be defined within double quotes. So whenever the assembler comes down to the DC and it sees something within double quotes, it knows it's a string, and what it does is it takes whatever's in that string and it associates it with the ASCII value for it. So the ASCII is the American Standard Code for Information and Interchange. So there's going to be a number for the letter H. I can't actually remember what it is. We will see it in a moment. I think it's 48. But it comes in here, it finds the number H, and it replaces it with, say, the number 48. That's 48 in hex. So the way the assembler does this is it comes down here, it sees the DC command, and then it automatically appends as at the beginning, it adds in a line. So the line at the beginning is the data command. So it says data and the value of 48, and then it places it in a memory location. So the memory location will be D500. Now if I was to put an E here, then it would work out the ASCII, the code for E, and it would take the E and it would place it at the next address, which would be 8501. And if I added another letter, it would be 8502, and so on and so forth. So that's basically how the assembler deals with our ASCII characters. Now what we will do is we will run this. So if I put in terminal, run task and assemble, okay, so that's it assembled. Now what we will do is drop down in here, and it's called string_test, and we will actually look at the assembly language. So this is the assembly language here. We have the code 200, okay, so the machine code for 0200 is the data command, and then the ASCII value for the letter H is 48, and then the memory location is D500. So it puts the ASCII number 48, which is the H, in this memory location. But that's not all it does. It also adds in a delimiter. So we need to know whenever the code has, the ASCII code has finished. Now if we didn't have this delimiter, it would make a lot of the subroutines or ask the string functions impossible to generate. So what it does is it puts another value in the next memory location. So the value it puts in is a null delimiter. So it is a value of 0000, and it puts that in the next memory location. So now we know the basics of how this is going to work. let's go ahead and we will look at our first string manipulation, which is going to be generating the length of a string. So we have our calling function on the right here. We are going to have the string with the word hello. So we know that's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 letters. So we want to return the number 5 in the next memory location, which in this instance we've called length. So we're going to push the string. So this is going to be the address of the first letter. So in effect it's the address of the letter H. And then we're going to push the length as well. So it's the address of length. Now length is only going to be 1 byte because we're going to just return a number. And then we jump to the subroutine. It goes over to the subroutine. It works through the code and generates the number 5 by counting the number of letters, and it returns into the memory location length, and that will be the code finished. So let's look at the actual subroutine. We do our housekeeping here, and then we pop the return address, and we pop off the length and also the string into R3 and into R1. We clear R2 because we want to make sure there is nothing in it from any previous calls to this function. And then we jump into the loop. So we're going to load R1 into R0. So this is the actual ASCII code, in this case for the letter H, which is going to be the hex value 48. Now we want to check and see whether the very first letter 1 that comes in is a delimiter. So if we had, for example, nothing within the double quotes, then we would still have a single delimiter for that value. Okay, so we would have a 0000. So we test to find out whether that's the case. Now if we do have the value 0000, it means that the length of our text is actually 0. There's nothing in it. So all we do at that point is jump to the return. So there's the return here, and it stores the value that's in R2 into register R3, the address that's pointed to by the contents of register R3, and that will be the value of 0. And then we load the values back into our register as part of our housekeeping, and then we jump back to the jump to return address, jumps back here, and the code is finished. Now when we come down here, if it turns out that we actually have characters, that means that this comparison won't be true and it will move on to the next line. So when it moves on to the next line, we're going to increment R1 and increment R2. So in effect what we're going to do is we're going to jump on to the next value of the string, which is the value of E. Now we've also got to increment the counter. So R2 in effect acts as a running count. So it will put the value of 1 in. So it's found the first character, it's put a value of 1 in to the running count. And then we jump back to the beginning of the loop, goes to the back of the beginning of the loop, and it continues with this process. And it keeps continuing with the process, counting up, in this case until it gets to the value of 5. Now once it gets to the value of 5, the next value that comes in is the delimiter, which is the 0000. So we do the comparison then, and whenever we've done that comparison, it will return, jump back to the jump if equal to return, jumps down here, and then we store the value that's in R2 into the memory location. So in this instance, R2 will contain the value of 5, and we store it in R3, which is the length. And then we jump to the return address, returns back up here, and that's the end of the code. So this should return the value of 5. Let's go and put it into the machine and we will see it working. So I have loaded the code into the RAM and the subroutine into the ROM. Let's run it now. And you should see the values for the ASCII values coming through into register R0 just in a moment. So the first one will be 48. That's HELLO, and that will be it finished, and it clears off the registers, and that's it. The code ended. So let's stop the simulation and we will drop in and see whether we have actually returned the correct count value. So you can see here that we're going to have the HELLO and the delimiter, which is the 0, and the very next value here that we're going to see in memory is the length, which is going to be a length of 5. So that's our very first string manipulation. Let's go ahead over the next few videos and we will generate a few more subroutines for our string library. Thank you for listening. I'll get you on the next video. Goodbye.